Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you'll join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can listen to us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. Really a wonderful episode for you today. First up, Jonathan Stroud will be here to celebrate the Legendary Scarlet and Brown, his new middle grade novel. And later in the show, Molly Crowe will be here to celebrate her YA title. It is called Whisper of Fate. My friends, if you have ever thought about owning a business that's fun, rewarding, and makes a valuable contribution to kids' education, well, Brooklyn Robot Foundry is calling your name. I recently met Jenny Young. She's the founder of Brooklyn Robot Foundry. And let me tell you, she is incredible. Her passion for getting kids excited about STEAM, that's STEM plus art, it's contagious. I'm telling you. This isn't your average kids program. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is all about hands-on, screen-free STEAM fun. These kids get to build a different robot each class and take it home with them afterwards. Kids love it. Parents are raving about it. And now you can own a franchise and bring this incredible experience to families in your community. Now, this isn't your typical franchise. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is a mobile, flexible business with a deep curriculum that's making a real impact in schools and communities around the country. Franchise owners get a proven curriculum, full training, and support from a passionate team. So what are you waiting for? Please visit bit.ly/RobotJed. That's bit.ly/RobotJed. And let them know you heard about it on Reading with Your Kids. Join us right now from the United Kingdom. Our guest is here today to celebrate his new middle grade YA title. Is called The Legendary Scarlet and Brown. Please welcome to the show, Jonathan Stroud. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
Hi, Jeddy. Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Lovely to be chatting to you.
Lovely to chat to you too. Jonathan and I just had a lovely 10-minute chat or so about the UK, about United States. It's and just the privilege that we have to be able to travel such long distances at this time in history.
Yeah, well, that's right, Jeddy. I was just come back from a tour of the States and spent 2 weeks zooming around. Went to 6 different states and did lots of events in schools and in bookstores. And it's such a thrill to meet so many different people, so many walks of life, and see so many different amazing landscapes as I traveled.
Yeah. Does it surprise you? Because you were telling me that somebody drove 6 hours to go to one of your events while you were here. Does it surprise you that your work is touching so many people?
Oh, it always surprises me. I mean, it's a very special and humbling kind of experience to hear that a book that I've written has had that effect on someone. And because I've been doing it a while, my first series that had some success was more than 20 years ago. And so because I've been doing it for that length of time, I meet people who are bringing their kids with them, and they themselves read my stuff when they were young, and now they're bringing their kids to introduce them to me. And so you get that sense of the love of reading passing through the generations, which is a wonderful thing to see.
Absolutely. What a great tradition to pass on to your kids.
Yeah.
Not only the love of reading, but hey, this is one of my favorite authors.
Yeah, it's a really profound thing, you know. Well, for a start, it makes me feel very old, so that's a slight downer. But no, it is a really special thing. You get people who occasionally I meet someone who I talked to when I came to the States, 20 years ago, and they'll I met them as a child, and they'll appear as an adult, and they'll have their kids with them, and that kind of thing is very powerful. I mean, I can remember as a child having authors coming into my school talking about their books and how the effect that had on me. You know, as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, I was already interested in the idea of writing, and I was scribbling away, doing all kinds of stuff. And these authors would come in, and I would get really, really thrilled to hear their stories, their words of encouragement. I used to write to them, and I'd occasionally get a letter back. And you know, there's a real sense in which, hopefully, when I go into the schools now, I'm reaching. I mean, who knows? I'm talking to hundreds of people, but among the crowd, there will be people there who hopefully will get that kind of fire lit inside them, and then they'll start off on their own journey.
Yeah, there was an author here in New England when I was a kid. His name was Edward Rowe Snow, and he wrote a lot of ghost stories and kind of mysteries that were all based in New England, and he came to our school, and that really excited me.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big responsibility when authors are invited into schools. You could be the catalyst that launches a future writer, or absolutely launches a lifelong love of reading in a kid.
It's absolutely true. And one guy who was a Canadian writer of science fiction called Douglas Hill, he was writing really excellent sci-fi stories when I was so sort of late 70s, I guess, early 80s. He was doing it, and he came into my school, and I wrote to him, and he wrote back a letter saying. I sent him a little sample of what I was doing, and he said, well, you need to improve your spelling, but once you've done that, I keep going, and I've no doubt that you'll get yourself published. And about sort of 25 years later, I met him again at some sort of literary thing in London. I was able to tap him on the shoulder and say, remind him of this, and said, you encouraged me, and now I have in fact published my first book. So that was a very special moment to kind of almost close the circle and to sort of give him that acknowledgement. So I very much hope that one day I'll get the same kind of tap on my shoulder from someone else.
That's wonderful. Well, I've told this story on the show before. In college, I was writing short stories, and I asked one of my professors to take a look at it. And the next time I came to class, I said, "What did you think?" And his answer was, "Do you want me to tell you the truth, or want me to tell you what you want to hear?"
All right, okay.
And I just walked away.
Well, but it's a process, isn't it? These things take time, and as a lot of the people I was talking to on this trip just recently, a lot of people, I'm very impressed, because when I was 15, I was writing very small stuff, very kind of tentative, and these days a lot of people at that age are already kind of embarking on novels and all kinds of things. So I was talking to a lot of people who were already kind of fully embarked on a kind of literary career, and you just have to kind of be encouraging and to say the truth, which is that you keep persevering, keep plugging away, you get better all the time. Even things that you write that don't come off, you don't finish it, it's still good practice. It's still part of the process of improving, and you're taking a step further towards the goal of being published. So yeah, it was a tremendously exciting and re-energizing experience for me. The energy goes both ways. Hopefully you inspire them, but the readers of every age kind of inspire me as well.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into learning about the Legendary Scarlet and Brown. I understand these are two teenage outlaws.
Yes, it's a kind of it's really a series. It's a British Western in a weird sort of way. It's set in the British Isles, but it's hundreds of years in the future. There's been some kind of apocalyptic event which has changed the world. There are far fewer humans around. The landscape has become a lot sort of more fierce. The animals have grown and become more ferocious. There are cannibals roaming around as well. So the boring home counties where I come from are far more exciting in my book. And most people kind of live in little tiny surviving towns with walls, high walls to keep out all the animals and things. But my heroes, Scarlet McCain and Albert Brown, they're outcasts for one reason or another, and they go out into the wilderness and they rob banks and they perform various sort of misdeeds, but actually they're heroic figures because they're happy to face up to the challenges of the world. Most people in the story are kind of turning their heads away. They're looking inwards. But my heroes are not afraid to go out there and face the world as it is, which is always a good thing.
Always a good thing. Absolutely. What inspired? I'm always amazed that it seems like so many books that are talking about the future are talking about a not so great future. It's kind of this dystopian, kind of depressing. I read some of that stuff and I'm like, well, I want to live to be 105, but I don't know if I want to live to be 105 in that world.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think it's funny. Sometimes one or other of my publishers has sort of described the Scarlet and Brown books as being set in a dystopia, and it's kind of misleading because yes, the world they inhabit has got these dangers and it's got cannibals and all kinds of stuff. But actually, in all my books I try to put a lot of humour in there. The characters themselves are sort of full of a kind of life-enhancing sort of humour and a drive to look after each other. There's a kind of movement in the books from the characters start off isolated, and by the time you get to the end of the third book, there's a community building up around them. So it's all about sort of searching for connection with other people. And so I actually think that the books are. They're not really dystopian at all. They're actually showing you a sort of positive vision of how we all have to operate and how we can all live a good life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of speaking to today, what's going on today with the introduction of devices. We're more have the ability to be more connected, but I think more and more people are very, very lonely and isolated despite having all these tools.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's a very two-headed thing, isn't it? The devices allow you to communicate just as we're communicating now. You know, I'm talking to you on my phone. When I go around America, I'm able to put up reels sort of showing what I'm up to, and I get people following from all over the world, and that's such a hugely advantageous thing that can bringing us all closer together. But then the other flip side, of course, is that we're all spending more time on our screens than ever before, and that is kind of beginning to kind of cut us off from each other. So it's a problem that we're all wrestling with. And books, of course, and I know this is very close to the heart of the podcast, but you know, the books and sharing stories, experiencing stories together is a tremendously powerful way of countering that kind of isolation that we're all threatened with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, you and I have been here. We just met each other, and we've had this so far 20-minute chat, enjoying each other's company. I think there are kids out there, maybe a majority of kids, who've never had a 20-minute one-on-one conversation with,
right?
You know, which is
very
sad.
Yes, I know, and that's one of the great pleasures of going on the tour again was the fact that because as a writer, you by definition you're spending a lot of your time locked up in a room on your own, staring at a screen or staring at bits of paper, and you're doing it for a good purpose. You're the ultimate aim is to create something that communicates with people. But it's a tremendously kind of isolating sort of experience. So actually, it's fantastic to go out into the world, talk to several hundred school children at the same time, get their opinion, ask them questions about which covers they like, what they don't like. It's actually really important. Just speaking as a writer, it's really important to refill the batteries by communicating, by immersing yourself in society, and that's obviously true of everybody, regardless of what you do and what age you are. I fully agree. I think it's so important for young people to have as much communication with each other as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like the Legendary Scarlet and Brown are one of those books that could absolutely ignite a fantastic series of conversations between a parent and child or caregiver and child, if they're reading it together or co-reading it. What kind of conversations do you think families could have if they're experiencing Scarlet and Brown together?
Well, I totally agree. In fact, it's always been one of the great pleasures of doing events where I meet people over the last 20 years to discover how many families read my books collectively, sort of together, either sometimes they kind of listen to audio together. That's often people in the car and they'll have the audio on and they listen to it as a family. But then there's a large number of people, the parents are reading the books to their kids at bedtime, and my books are not short. They're big fat novels. Some of my earlier books had footnotes in them with all kinds of different characters. So I initially I was very amazed by how people would have the stamina to do this, but I think what my books offer are I have lots of strong characters. The characters are often very different. There's often a lot of kind of humour that comes from confrontation between the characters, particularly early on, that the opposites kind of rub up against each other, and there's lots of excellent sort of confrontation. But within that, there's there are plenty of things that they learn from each other. So ultimately, the books are very healing, I think. But the mix of humour and action and different set pieces and scenes. I try to throw in lots of different genres into each book, so there should be something there for adults and children to get their teeth into.
Wonderful. Hey, I'm just curious. This question just occurred to me, and it's excuse me if it sounds like a dopey question, but we've had a lot of authors come on and say, well, this character was inspired by my son or my daughter or my best friend. This is a little bit of me. Have you ever had an occasion where there's somebody in your life that has just gotten under your skin and just really gotten you angry, and you said, I'm going to write him into my book and just feed him to an animal or something?
I don't think I've ever actually created a character, sort of a three-dimensional character based on a particular person. I think once or twice I've used names of people that I got irritated with at some point in my history. I thought, right, well, I'm going to use. I was looking for a name for some dodgy sort of character. Oh, yeah, that name will do very nicely. So yeah, occasionally you can sort of embed these things in. But no, normally I think characters are a mix. They may start when you start writing a character, you may think, okay, this is going to be a villain. He's got various dubious characteristics, but actually as you write the characters, they become three-dimensional, and it's almost despite yourself you discover that they've got other sides to them. Maybe they're not quite as bad as you thought. There are elements that they're funny or vulnerable. So actually they take on a life of their own, and despite the fact that you might have started with somebody you didn't like in mind.
You know, you were sharing with us that you had a tour of the United States. Of course, you have a following in the UK, and I saw on your website that you're going to be touring Germany soon. Are your books popular all over the world, and what does that feel like?
So yes, sort of over the years, I've been published in lots of different languages. I think my one of my series has been published in 36 different languages, which is an incredible thing. When I look at the shelf with all the different editions, and you open them up and you flip the pages, and they're languages that I would never be able to read. It's a very profound thing to think that they're going out there, and the images that I'm creating are igniting in people's heads, other side of the world. It is a really thrilling thing, and you do find when you travel around that actually everyone is kind of the same. We've all got our surface differences. The cultural sort of froth on the top of our cultures, but actually, when you're talking about books, when you're talking about adventure stories or fiction or characters, or when you're enthusing about different things, the talking to children in America is no different from talking to children in Japan or Germany or UK. The same. You get the same kinds of responses, the same kinds of excitement. So, we're all pretty similar when all's said and done.
Right. Yeah. It's one of the things we talk about here on the podcast. It's wonderful. The books allow us to look into other cultures and to express our differences, but to ultimately help us understand that we're all part of one beautiful human family.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it's absolutely true, and I think all my books. I mean, Scarlet and Brown is the most recent series, but Lockwood and Co. was the series before that, which became a Netflix series a few years ago, and they all have the same, I think, the same underlying themes with people from different walks of life coming together, overcoming differences, and ultimately finding hope through that collective action. And I think it's a message that we all of us need now and at all times. It's a key message, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Tell me what you mentioning that the Legendary Scarlet and Brown. This is the third in your latest trilogy. Are you already working on the next series?
I've started work on a couple of projects. Very, very early. I'm in that secretive phase where you can kind of say that you're working on something, but you can't really give too much information about it. I don't know what you feel, but when you've got a project and it's kind of early phase, it's quite fragile, and you don't want to send it out into the world in any form in case somebody squashes it. So at this point, I sort of keep it quite quiet. But I've got a novel that I've started, and I've also got a younger series that I'm working on, which I'm quite excited about. I'd like to sort of diversify into a few different fields at once if I can.
Great. That's really super. Do you think, as you're creating, do you always think long term? I know you mentioned you're thinking about a novel, but are you really comfortable with this? Just thinking about a story as part of a bigger thing.
It's an organic process for me, Jedley. So what I do is I usually start with a single idea. Maybe like just a little concept, little image almost, which I get excited about, and I'll throw myself in, and I'll probably just write a scene or two. And at that point, I don't really know what my story is at this point. But am I interested in the characters? Is there something there that gives me a bit of a spark of excitement? And if there is, I sort of keep working, and it's like I always say it's a bit like kind of starting a jigsaw from the middle of the jigsaw. You've got a couple of pieces. You build outwards from that, and you slowly start to make things take shape, and eventually you end up with a beautiful jigsaw with nice straight sides, and it all looks incredibly orderly. But to begin with, it's very higgledy-piggledy. It does take me quite a long time. I might spend 6 months on something before I know whether it's a single book or whether it's the start of a series. It's like you're looking ahead of you down a road, and it's quite cloudy or misty, and you can sort of see some of the shapes, but you don't see it straight away, and that's okay. That's kind of part of the creative process. I don't know what other authors say, but I feel like you don't see it all straight away. You have to work. You build your way forwards, and gradually everything starts to become clearer.
Awesome. I'm curious, you've spent so much time with kids around the world. Is there one question that really surprised you or was just incredibly profound that sticks in your mind?
That's a great question. Well, it's hard to give one answer to that, because what I found is this is the incredible thing, and it's hard to kind of give evidence for it. But although I've done hundreds of events over the last sort of 25 years, almost every school I go to, there will be a question that I haven't had before, because you get certain questions that you know, how much do you earn, or where do you get your inspiration from, or what's your favorite book? So there are some things that come up quite often, but there are always questions that are phrased in a new and sort of profound way, and it's very hard for me. Weird thing is, it's very hard for me to remember them, because I always answer them and then move on to something else. No, I can't think of anything offhand, but just to say that there's no end to the creativity of the kids. There's always something new coming.
Yeah. The weirdest question that I've gotten recently was from a kid who was right in the middle of my performance, and he raised his hand. I said, "What do you want to know?" And he said, "Are you Mexican?"
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of nice. Yeah.
It was. Jonathan, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Legendary Scarlet and Brown, and also find out more about you, please.
Yeah. So, if you go to any good bookstore, you will find the Legendary Scarlet and Brown on the shelves. It's published by Knopf, and the other two books in the series, The Outlaws Scarlet and Brown and Notorious Scarlet and Brown, should be out there too. Also, the Listening Library has done a lovely audio edition, which I thoroughly recommend. A lot of people enjoy that. And you can, so also libraries, your local library, hopefully your school library will have it. And you can find me on JonathanStroud.com. That's my website. There's masses of information about me and my other books as well.
We've had a fantastic time speaking to the author of the Legendary Scarlet and Brown. It's the third book in a wonderful trilogy by our guest, Jonathan Stroud. Jonathan, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thanks so much, Jedley. It's wonderful to talk to you.
Hey, my friends. Would you like to bring a little warmth and magic into your home? Let me introduce you to Welsh Mountain Candles, hand-poured on a working Amish farm in Lancaster County. These all-natural, toxin-free candles are made from palm wax with a stunning crystallized glow, rich coconut apricot wax for a creamy finish, and essential oils for a pure, refreshing scent. Whether you're winding down, setting the mood, or just love a great candle, Welsh Mountain Candles are crafted with care and made to be shared. Visit WelshMountainCandles.com. Use the promo code JED10 for 10% off your order today. Light up your home with Welsh Mountain Candles, where every candle tells a story. My friends, we are going to dive into the world of fantasy with our guest today. She's here to celebrate her new YA novel. It's called Whisper of Fate. Please welcome to the show, Molly Crowe. Hey, Molly, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Delighted to have you on. Tell me about Whisper of Fate. This is a sequel, correct?
Yes, it's a sequel. The first book, Shadow of Hope, came out about a year ago. And so this is the sequel. And I wrote, this is a trilogy. So the third book should be out sometime next year. And I sort of wrote these books from an idea that came to sort of model each kingdom after the seven natural wonders of the world. And so it kind of came from that. And the sequel, it's just kind of a continuation of the story from the first book.
All
and
right.
really excited to get it out.
You got to tell me if it's based on the seven wonders of the world, why is there only 3 books?
I know. Well, there could be more, but we kind of focus on 3 of the kingdoms in this trilogy. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
which kingdom are we going to be exploring in Whisper of Fate?
Well, so in Shadow of Hope, we explore the kingdom of Avalon, which is sort of based on the harbor of Rio de Janeiro. And so that's where that is. But then in Whisper of Fate, we move into, there's this kingdom called the Crassive Isles, and that's where our villain is from. And so our main characters are going into the Crassive Isles, and that one is sort of off the Great Barrier Reef. So it's this kingdom that is supposed to be beautiful and has lots of life, but at this moment in time, the kingdom is really dark, and they're kind of trying to save it from these rogue spirits that are making it dark to bring it back to the beauty that it once had.
And now, is this kingdom above or below water? You mentioned the Great Barrier Reef.
It's above. The reef just surrounds it. So it's like an island, a set of islands.
Now, did you visit these wonders to do research? Could have written that off in your taxes.
Yeah, I know, that would have been good. No, I've only visited the Grand Canyon, of all of these. That's the only one I've really been to. But did a lot of research, and, and they're very, very loosely based. So it's not, totally based off of it, but inspired by, I guess, is maybe better.
All right. Now, I read in one of my notes that one of the characters we're going to be meeting is called Callista.
Yes. So Callista's the main character, and she, in Shadow of Hope, she is a princess who she's betrothed to a captain who's basically the most amazing guy you've ever met. His name's Luke Ramsey. And so he's a captain that's been betrothed to her, and they've known each other their whole lives. But when she's 10, she is on the beach and she's drowning, and a boy saves her that she doesn't catch his name, and he runs off. And when the second chapter of Shadow of Hope basically is her seeing this boy again when she's 17, and he's actually an assassin sent to kill her, but when he sees her, he says, "Oh, I remember her. I'm not going to kill her." And it's about him hiding his identity and, having feelings for each other while she's also dealing with having to be betrothed and, falling between duty and desire, sort of this idea. And the Shadow of Hope is, and Whisper of Fate, they're about these 3 characters and their journeys to find their identity, and it's about forgiveness and about things they're all dealing with. The book is told from the points of view of Callista, Luke, and Rain. Rain is the boy who had saved her in the ocean when they were 10. And so they each have their own kind of personal journeys going on, but Callista's the main character throughout the series. And so, in Shadow of Hope and in Whisper of Fate, Callista is also dealing with the world that she lives in, and these kind of spiritual forces kind of moving around her that she can sense, but not very many other people can. And so when she realizes that they're real and that it's up to her to kind of protect her kingdom, her friends help her, and she's being attacked by Lord Mayhan of the Crassive Isles. He's the one who sent Rain, the assassin, to kill her. And so we're trying to figure out why he's after her and kind of what the threat is against her and why he wants her gone, essentially, while we're dealing with her and her love story. So that's the gist of Shadow of Hope, basically.
There's a lot going on there. Now, would I be correct in saying this is a romantasy?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I just learned that word yesterday.
The good description. That's right. It is.
Yes, I was listening to a podcast. I think it's called What's a Cult, and they were talking about the cult of books and YA, and they use the term romantasy. So, thank you for giving me a chance to use it before.
This is the right place to use it. That's right.
But you talk about the conflict between being in love with somebody you've known your whole life and that you're supposed to marry, and wow, this person that just came into my life, and I have these feelings. Those feelings, those are things that I think that a lot of teens can relate to. Maybe not being betrothed to somebody, but especially the high school, early college years, you have these, maybe first relationships that mean a lot to you. Then you go out into the world, and now you're meeting new people, and it's like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna work.
Yeah, and I think there's that, and then there's also this layer of that Callista's father, because they were betrothed their whole life, trained Luke to be the next king and sort of ignored Callista her whole life, or so she thought. And so the idea is she's feeling a little cast aside by him too. And as the book goes on, and as we're learning more about her and her relationship with her father, you see her kind of having to come to terms with who she's really meant to be, despite what she thinks her parents think. And so I think that also just those feelings of identity, and the teenagers kind of going through like, who am I, and who does the world want me to be? It's sort of like a lot of that also falls into this too, along with the love story.
Yeah. What is it about this audience that you enjoy writing for?
I wrote these books, and I'll tell you this, they're not Christian books, like they're not Christian books, but I wrote them sort of with these Christian themes to them. Mm-hmm. And, the way that these characters interact with the spirits is what I call them. The soul defenders are these things that she's ending up protecting, and the soul defenders are what brings the goodness into the world. And they're named for what the goodness is. So we've got peace, joy, truth, beauty, courage, and life. And, and those are the goodness that's being put into the world. And the way that Callista, Luke, and Rain each interact with these spirits is different. And as I grew up in church and with people, and, lots of friends who I would say things like, well, I never hear God speaking to me, or, different times in your life, you might not feel that. And in this book, one of the characters, it never hears, from these spirits. And then the way that another one, it seems very clear. And it's like, well, why are they speaking to him and not me? You've got like this kind of confusion of, where is God in my life, and what is the world? How am I interacting with him in the world? And I think that the message that I really wanted to get across was, even though I'm not coming out and saying it, I don't talk about God in the book, but just that I believe he speaks to each person differently, and how you don't always have to be hearing his voice for him to be present with you in your life. And so I think that is why I felt compelled to write it for teenagers, because I think that in that time of your life, sometimes you feel really distant, or, it's hard maybe to know, if something is, if God's talking to you or not, or if he cares or not. And I think that, it felt like an important age group. I love books in that genre, and like, I think that I was always drawn to it. And, it just is something that I felt like it was the natural audience to fit this to. Yeah.
Is this, you mentioned that these were kind of feelings that you experienced as a teen. Did writing this book kind of help you work out some of those leftover feelings?
I think it was interesting what came out, like where each character interacts with them different. I kind of reflected back to different times in my life where I felt those things through each one of them, and the way that they're sometimes, the way that God might just seem really, really present. Like you can really hear his voice, and sometimes you feel like you can't at all, but I think he is always present. It just was interesting. Some of the stories and the things that ended up coming out in my writing were things that either happened to me or that I had felt, which was really kind of neat. And so, I don't know if it was necessarily, it wasn't planned to do it that way. It just kind of came out, and, it just made me more sure, I think, that God really is present in our lives, whether we know it or not, and whether we're experiencing him or not in the moment. So it was pretty neat. It was a fun experience.
Great. That really is wonderful. I'm curious. I love, because I started reading with your kids. The only knowledge of kids' books that I had was the fact that I loved reading them with my kids when they were young, and they're now grown-ups. And I know that my wife's relationship with both of our adult kids was built on those moments that we spent reading with your kids. So that's why I launched it. I've learned so much about the book industry since that time. And I know certain genres, there's like language that belongs in picture books and not in other books. And what about the YA genre? Because we're talking about an audience that is just about officially adults. And so what can go into a YA title and what shouldn't go into a YA title? Are you familiar? Are there any rules?
Well, I know the rules that I know are really mainly the characters' ages. So I know that, Callista's 17. So I think that the main character being 17 kind of labels it young adult. But my book is, I would say, I don't know about the rules, but it's appropriate for, I would say, young teens all the way up. And, I know my mom loves it and all her friends love it, but then also I've had 13-year-old girls love it. And for me, I just want it to be clean romance, like I don't put any spice in it. I want to make sure that it would be appropriate and, anyone would feel comfortable handing it to their daughter or their grandma or anyone. And so that was part of it, is I wanted to make sure that it was just something that anyone would feel comfortable reading, but it does have a lot of romance and like those feelings are there and the feelings that a 14-year-old girl might be feeling or, experiencing for the first time. And so, but anyone I would think can relate. It's kind of, for me, I just wanted it to be something I would feel comfortable handing to a young girl and her feeling and not feeling, like I would be handing her something that she shouldn't be reading. So that was kind of it.
Yeah. Tell me, we talk about what kind of conversations families can have with their kids if they're reading together on the couch or co-reading a YA novel. I'm imagining that reading Whisper of Fate in your trilogy might be a more comfortable way for a young guy or young woman to have conversations about romance with their parents, because you're never going to get a young teenager to get them to, hey, come on over here, sit down, let's talk about who you have a crush on.
Yeah, that actually just happened this weekend. I was at a book signing, and a girl came up to me who had read Shadow of Hope, and she was really excited about Whisper of Fate, and she was telling me who she wanted, Callista to end up with, and she was having all these feelings, and she leaned over to me and she said, hey, how Callista has a crush on, and she kind of named one of the characters. I won't give it away. And she said, I do too. And her mom was standing right there, and her mom, they've been reading it together. Her mom's been reading it to her out loud. So it's almost exactly like what you said. And they were, starting to have these conversations about her and then boys at school. And so that was kind of neat. That very thing happened to me just 2 days ago. So.
Yeah. And what a service in writing this book, because that's a very important conversation to have, and most kids aren't able to have that with a parent. Most parents aren't able to have that conversation with their kids, and instead kids end up talking to their peers who probably know nothing or are going online and exploring some things that might not be healthy for them to explore. So kudos to you to, especially for that family to have given that family the key to open up that conversation.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm glad that I never thought of that as kind of an angle, But when her mom said that she was reading it to her, it was actually her and her twin brother reading, they're 14, reading it to them out loud every night. And I thought that's really special. And I never really envisioned that happening, but I love that it is.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. One of the things that authors often talk to me about is that they're surprised when a character says this or that or does this or that. Was there anything that Callista did that really surprised you?
Yeah, I was mad at her a lot, which is funny. Like there are lots of times where I felt so angry with her, but and I'd have to just step back and I'd say, okay, this is the right way for this character to go. I think mainly because when you see that, Luke is such a great guy and she's betrothed to him, but she has feelings for this other guy, and she should want to, be with Luke. She should, there's a lot, because he's a great, great character, and I found myself rooting for him a lot. And it's not resolved by the end of Shadow of Hope. Whisper of Fate is kind of the resolution of her love story, but there's still a lot of plot and a lot of the mystery with the Soul Defenders that we still have to get in the end of the third book. And I'll tell you, the third book, no character you'll be happy for all three of them by the end of the series. But, at the end of Shadow of Hope, I think that I was a little angry with Callista. Because she just, it's not the ending you'd expect. But sometimes, I was a little bit annoyed. And, I was surprised too how much, things that like my husband says or does came out in one of the characters too. Like I started to kind of write, and the more I was a little more than halfway through when I was like, oh, I didn't realize, I didn't mean to, but I was kind of starting to write my husband into one of them. And so that was kind of fun to see. And as he read it, he'd be like, hey. So
this feels uncomfortably familiar to me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Can you kind of explain, because I'm sure there's somebody listening, we've had this conversation with creators in the past, but I'm sure there's somebody new listening thinking, what do you mean you're mad at her? You created her. You're the one
right.
with these thoughts, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Well, when these characters, they take on these personalities and they really become, I did create her, I guess, but it's sort of, they take on their personality, and then as you start to write, you kind of have to write them in that personality, and it feels like I knew what the plot's going to be when I wrote it, but I didn't really know what their personalities were going to be when I sat down to write it. I think that was the part that I wasn't sure about. So you've got these three characters who are all really different, and then as you write them, every interaction, even though I know what the plot's supposed to be, every interaction has to be tailored to them, and so then that was the fun part of writing it, because you don't really know when you sit down to write a chapter exactly what these characters are going to say or how they're going to react to each other. And then that's kind of where the magic of it is, and where the story got good, is their interactions with each other. The plot could be good, but if their interactions and they aren't interesting people, then that just kind of makes it a dull book. And so it's weird. I don't know if I can really describe it, but it's like, that's maybe as close as I can get, is that they all just kind of take on their own personalities, and then they kind of take the story along with it.
That's very, very cool. Boy, one of the things that I'm always amazed at with authors of fantasy or romantasy is, how do you keep the world straight? Because there are times when I'm reading it and it's like, wait a minute, what? People can fly, but they can't. How do you keep your universe straight?
Well, mine, I would say I've read a lot of fantasy books, and the ones I've read are probably a lot more fantastical than mine. So I would say, there's this element of this sort of spiritual world. These soul defenders are these things that bring the goodness into the world. But we don't see them very often. We don't even see them till the very end of the first book, where they're talked about. It's something that's there, but you're not really sure where they are. They're trapped away behind some, we call it the gateway. It's this thing that keeps them away from the human world, and Callista's trying to find a way to get through to them. And so it's they're kind of in this world that feels sort of normal, other than the fact that it was a long time ago and it has horses and no electricity, and so you're kind of living in that world. But there's no flying and, you know what I mean? Like those, there's no fairies, it's pretty, I would say normal-ish, other than where they are. So I really put a lot of, creativity into what each of these kingdoms is like and how different they are from each other. And in Shadow of Hope, we really only visit Avalon and then they go to the Crassive Isles just for a minute. In book 2, in Whisper of Fate, kind of explore a little bit more. We go to 2 more kingdoms, and then in the 3rd book, we go to 2 more. So it's just kind of builds and builds as you go. And it's really kind of a slow build. And so, it was fun to kind of explain as I went what each kingdom was and like the personality of each one and what the nature was like and what the clothes are like and all of that. But I would say if you call it in fantasy books and as far as fantasy books go, it's not high fantasy at all. I mean, there's just some elements that give it enough for it to feel different, but, it's not too crazy.
Okay. All right. I love it. Did you ever, in either of the books, and I'm sure you're working on the 3rd book now, have you ever written yourself into a corner where you go, oh no, that's not part of this world. I got to go back and change it.
I've had to go change lots of things. I wrote all 3 books, really quickly. So I had a dream. I always kind of knew that I wanted to write a book based on the 7 natural wonders of the world, but I didn't really have a story behind it. In my mind, I thought, it'd be kind of cool to have, maybe this idea of goodness coming from each of these locations. I didn't know. But then one night I had a dream, about a whale, and it was this whale that I was on this beach and it was the most beautiful place I'd ever been. This is the most real dream I've ever had in my life. I mean, it was like color and everything. And I was on this beach with a lot of people and everyone turned around real fast and I was kind of the last one to turn and so I was the only one who saw this whale kind of swim up onto the shore and it stopped right in front of me to where this whale's face was like, I could reach out and touch it. And then it was really strange and I remember touching the whale's nose and then it pushed me into the water and I started tumbling around and this whale, I was kind of like, tumbling around with this whale. And then I woke up and I couldn't stop thinking about this dream. It was like, for 2 weeks, that's all I thought about, and I could not get it out of my head. And so one day I had the day off work, and I sat down, and I thought, well, that'd be an interesting start to a book, like, this whale pushing someone into the water. I thought, I wonder how she'd get out, and so then I started to think about this boy saving her, and then I got out a spreadsheet, and I just started kind of mapping out the plot, like, nothing fancy, just like this would happen, then this would happen. And, 6 hours later, I had 900 lines on my spreadsheet. And I was like, man, this is 3 books, and so like I broke it out and I just could see it. And I could not stop thinking about it. It basically took over my life. And so for 4 months, I wrote the first draft of all 3. I mean, it was just really fast came out of me, the whole thing. And I'd never written a novel before. It just poured out. I wrote the first draft of all 3 books in 4 months. And then I started slowly editing the first book. And once I got the first book edited, I told myself I wasn't going to do anything with the second or third book unless I got the first book published. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of worked through that. Once I got it published, then I thought, well, I really need to make sure this story is what I want. So I had to go back to the second and third book. And now today, like the plot of the second and third book is really different than it was originally. Like I had to really think through, well, what's the right, is this right? And going back and changing things happens all the time. So like to answer your question, I feel like that does happen all the time. It wasn't so much in that I was writing the wrong world maybe, but I would start to, I get carried away, I guess, when I'd start to write, I always want the characters to be happy. Sure. And so I make them too happy too early. And so I think that that's part of it, is trying to make it last a little longer.
We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Whisper of Fate and find out more about you.
Yeah, my website's mollycrowewrites.com. And so you can go there, and all my books are on my website, and there's links to those and descriptions and all of that. But yeah, my website's a good place. I'm on Instagram at Molly Crowe Writes also, and so I post lots of different things about the books coming out and what to expect. And so those are good places. And Whisper of Fate comes out on May 20th. And so I'm excited for that to be released into the world, and Shadow of Hope's available now.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Whisper of Fate. It is book 2 in a trilogy by our guest, Molly Crowe. Hey, Molly, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on X, and at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, our website, readingwithyourkids.com. If you are an author, please visit readingwithyourkids.com and click on the Authors Click Here button up at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest on Reading with Your Kids and tell thousands of Kidlit fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Jonathan Stroud. Please be sure to check out the Legendary Scarlet and Brown. We also want to thank Molly Crowe for being here. Please be sure to check out Whisper of Fate. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Skylar Charade, Megan Boucher. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.